right, hello and welcome to another Expert Insight interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP, online sales magazine, and Pipeliner CRM, now known as Coavera. Joining you as usual from a sunny San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined by just up the coast in San Francisco by Olivier Roth. How are you doing, Olivier?
Hey, great. How are you, John?
Yeah, and you're the co-founder and chief growth officer at The Swarm, the relationship intelligence leader helping companies and investors unlock the power of their extended networks. You've a background spanning growth strategy, brand building, startup marketing. You've worked with major organizations, high growth startups across the States and Europe. And today you help companies rethink growth by prioritizing relationships, warm introductions, partnerships, and network effects over traditional outbound strategies. So here's an interesting one. You know, you argue the company's most valuable growth asset is the network rather than, the technology, CRM or whatever. And we'll agree with that. I think that the network is the most important thing, especially today. That's why we often talk about network selling. We have a model of network selling. But tell me, how did you come to this realization yourself?
Yeah, we realized that the relationships around the company are the most underutilized and most valuable at the same time.
Uh-huh.
The best salespeople already use networks to sell. I mean, it's like the oldest thing in the playbook, right? Like, who does your investor know, and so on.
Yep.
But it's been very, very, very manual. It's just people do it like manually. It's opportunistic, like, oh, I see it, the opportunity here, or it comes, referrals come to you sort of like, you're like, oh, this is like something that's hard to repeat. And so we try to build a software around it, build technology around it to make it more systematic and scalable. The realization initially, was like the CEO and my co-founder David was working at Sequoia Capital. He was helping portfolio companies make the most of their networks and
Mm-hmm.
cross-pollinate networks around companies. And that's sort of like the origin idea of the swarm, where it all starts. Like there is a category here that doesn't exist really, and that was 5 years ago when we started the swarm.
Yeah, and let's face it. I mean, you probably have to do a lot of education and stuff with leadership teams because I think everybody got so caught up in data, right, and data insights and all of that um, networks and relationships and stuff they don't fit into neat categories often like
Mhm.
that. And as you said, and on top of that, if you're in B2B selling today, generally speaking, I mean, your buying committees are getting bigger and the amount of people involved are getting bigger. So that whole understanding the networks and understanding the relationships and leveraging that has become even more important.
Yeah, and we've seen, like, the rise of the go-to-market engineer and
Mhm.
growth and RevOps really taking a bigger role in organizations too. And so we often, like, work with them in conjunction with like the sales team as
Mhm.
a whole, right? It's like the revenue team as a whole. But like, um we've really like been positioning this actually as, like, data. I mean, it is like data that's humanly impossible to gather, knowing like who your investors know that might be in your
Yes.
SCP, who your advisors know, who your happy customers know, who your team knows, your extra humanly impossible to do. We gather all of that data, and make it like available, and and we work with a lot of like growth team that able to like pipe that over and
Mhm.
it, stack that on top of other signals. I mean, it's not like a
Sure.
standalone thing. It gets sort of
Mhm.
like added to like other signals to create more pipeline and close deals. It's not just like
Sure, sure.
net new. It's also down the funnel. I have a deal that's stuck in the last 6 months. Is there a relationship here that can help me accelerate the deal, get the deal on stock, and so on? There's just a lot of use cases with this, so I'm happy to dig into, like, what people use it. But
Yeah, no, do dig into a couple of use cases because it's kind of it's interesting, and the use cases will help people get their head around how this works in practice.
yeah, the number of use cases of like a company's network is, if we zoom out, it's sort of like dizzying, and it's
Hmm.
and it's like recruiting, because if I now know my employees' former colleagues, like, obviously that's a great talent pool. There is fundraising. I can see my investors, potential network and are the investors of fellow
Right.
founders. Okay, fundraising is a great use case. But sales, and go to market as a whole is obviously like the bigger one we've been going after in positioning. And inside of that use case, there is also a ton of use case. There is like top of the funnel,
Hmm.
I have my list of net new accounts that are untapped. I'm going to prioritize that list by connectivity in terms of relationships, and then try to find like warm intros into the very top deals, right? Then there is like I said, further down the funnel, there are some deals that are stuck. I'm gonna see if like an endorsement, maybe that's not an intro, it's like just an endorsement, we can call it,
Hmm.
to move the deal forward. Bottom of the funnel, and then on the other side of the funnel, like you've closed the deal. I mean, if you're thinking of like expansions, right? You're thinking of customer success, how to maximize the connectivity with an account, who knows who between organizations. Are there any former employees of if you're a bigger company, right? If you have like a
Yeah.
thousand more employees, are there some of our employees that used to work there, or that know the right person there to expand in that other department? I mean, um, that's just sales. There's
Yeah.
some adjacent use cases too for marketing. Like I am organizing an event, I'm looking for speakers. I can look through the network of my former speakers to find a speaker.
Hmm.
That's often how people do it. They just do it manually. They don't really have the whole data. They don't really have the whole picture. And so that's where we try to map and bring to the table here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think no, those are really good examples, and I think the thing is like relationships, and let's face it, because of technology and like LinkedIn, all these other things, like connections and have exploded, right? And relationships have exploded. Now they're very, and a lot of them are very, superficial, right? But to your
Right.
point is they exist, but they're hard to manage and they're hard to mine.
Mhm. Yeah, there is like as we dug into that problem over the last few years, we realized, yeah, the data mining itself was a hard problem. First of
Hmm.
all, you need fresh people data. So we built an entire data set, 500 million people, 100 million companies that we keep fresh with job change tracking and so on. That's like, if you want to know who knows who, you need to know who's who.
Yeah.
So we've got that problem sort of solved over the last 5 years. And then
Hmm.
there's like mapping relationships. So you map former colleagues, but not just like, hey, those two people work together at Google at the same time for 5 years. It's like seniority, role, function, geography. Like we apply a bunch of intelligence to try to say, okay, those people were actually like in the same team in San
Hmm.
Francisco. Okay, that's like much stronger sort of like commonality than like an intern and the CEO at Google across 5 years, right? I mean, um, and that's the scoring of relationships, which is the next problem that we tackle. And it's not over. We keep like
Yeah, yeah,
running into new ideas and how to do this better and better every day. And then like the orchestration. Now I have all of this data.
yeah.
How do I orchestrate my interests? Because we're talking about people's relationships. So it's not like I'm going to send 10,000 emails.
Hmm.
And it's the opposite of cold outbound in that sense. I'm gonna have to be very mindful how I do it. So it's like, how do you prioritize your 10,000 target accounts, and what are like the ways to approach the data? Is it like I'm going to ask for an intro here, or maybe I'm going to
Hmm.
name drop here? Maybe I'm going to name drop like in an email, or maybe I'm going to mention that on the sales call. um, so all of that orchestration is like sort of
Hmm.
like the next big thing. So
And I guess as part of this, though, do you have to educate people how to leverage this properly, because you could be quite clumsy with that, right? I mean, you could take the day like name drop people that you don't really know,
yeah,
or
just
whatever. So I mean, I guess part of it is also training people to use this elegantly.
right, high tech and high touch. Like it's kind of like the two coins here, the two
Hmm.
sides of the coin. I mean, so we do a lot of LinkedIn content and this podcast and so on,
Hmm.
spread the word that this is now sort of like a thing that exists and that's accessible. But also like, how do you do it? Because the old rules of networking still apply, and maybe they apply even more. Meaning, giving before you take,
Hmm.
making sure you nurture the network, making sure you ask with the double opt-in like an intro, not just like put people in a thread in the same email thread or
Mhm.
LinkedIn thread and so on. There's a ton that's documented very well, obviously, over the years, but we do our fair share. Yeah.
Yeah. But we would agree with you because that's what we said. Like, I mean, as a CRM company, when we rebranded, relaunched, and that recently, we believe it's revenue lives in the network. It doesn't live in the record. I mean, that's what people, traditionally, like, even think it's
Yeah.
all about the record, the single source of truth, the CRM record.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's important. But the revenue really lives in the network in your net. If you look at any deal, any sale or whatever, the actual it lives in all of those touch points, the people who touch it, along the way, and that's where it really lives. It doesn't live in some static record.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like the swarm is sort of like the mirror of a CRM, if you will.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I'm not trying to say it replaces the CRM. It doesn't replace the CRM. In fact, it's sort of like additive to it. But
Mhm.
the CRM is a system of record of the past. It's like all of the interactions that you've had in the past. And the swarm gives you potential relationships that you maybe haven't tapped into yet. So it's the future in a sense, right? If you
Right.
think of it as a timeline. But like, so we integrate with HubSpot and Salesforce also. So
Mhm.
it doesn't replace the CRM, obviously. It's just kind of like augments it with that, like with the network data. So it's like record plus network. I don't know.
Mhm.
There's gonna be a good LinkedIn post about that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, when you work with companies and that, are are people surprised, like, how richer maybe their networks are and maybe more extensive their networks are, that they didn't realize, or that they have a lot more to leverage than they didn't realize?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, so the first thing that comes to people's mind is LinkedIn. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
well, I mean, we're using Sales Nav, and we see the connections of our connections, and there is this sort of big misunderstanding or illusion that LinkedIn is your network and is going to be the network of your network by extension.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's only a fraction, and it's very imperfect because there is no context. A connection is binary; either you're connected or you're
Mhm.
not, and there is no context. And oftentimes that's the reason why people don't really know a lot of their LinkedIn connections.
Yep.
So we incorporate LinkedIn connection on a user opt-in basis in the swarm, but it's not the starting point. The starting point is like former colleagues, school alumni, investor overlaps, and so on. So people are like, oh, I well, a lot of people come to the swarm like, I want what I get on SalesNav, but with like an API and an MCP and so on. And we're like, well, actually, like we zoom out, and there is multiple layers of a person's network that we try to capture as much as we can with the publicly
Mhm.
available data. And you can then layer on top of that like email and so on. So, but it's not complete either. It's just like the it's a better image of a person's network with a score, with like an idea of like where the warmest relationships are. And people are the people are often like, oh yeah, that goes beyond LinkedIn,
Mhm.
obviously, but there was nothing else than LinkedIn Sales Nav until now. So people are kind
Yeah.
of stuck trying to hack Sales Nav to do this thing that doesn't really work. That's why people don't really do it.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, well, LinkedIn's a whole other story, isn't it?
There's another story there. There's that's the whole
Yeah, we
podcast.
could do a whole podcast on LinkedIn itself, but yeah. So, as you were saying, like, the technology part and obviously the AI part. One of the things that's um, you have to be concerned a little bit about sometimes is like the people, using AI too much and using too many AI tools and maybe ruining their network, maybe ruining their ability to be able to connect or whatever, because they just take shortcuts and don't use these tools in a systematic and maybe in a thoughtful fashion.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, well, we try to leverage AI in every way we can to get the data in the hands
Mhm.
of the right people.
Yeah.
But then how you use it, like the email that gets sent, you can generate it with AI, obviously, but like um, that's where the rubber hits the road. It's like what you send, what you receive, the exchange is between people. So what we do is like we map the data, we score the data, we surface the
Mhm.
data, we pipe it over in your CRM and so on, and just kind of like try to build that whole thing. But yeah, it's like um, if you're gonna then unleash AI to send 1,000 intro requests, then you're probably going to get subpar results, and you're probably gonna ruin your network, like you said.
Yeah.
So yeah, but people don't. Yeah, I mean, most people are.
So how do you explain like the difference? Because some people will say, "Oh, I've got a massive LinkedIn. Look, I've got all these connections. I have a massive LinkedIn network."
Yeah.
What's the difference? How do you explain the difference between having a massive LinkedIn network, you are connected to a lot of people, but the difference between that and an effective network?
So LinkedIn is your audience. It's not
Hmm.
your network.
Yeah.
And people treat it as an audience, which they should, because it's an audience, because LinkedIn is a social media
Hmm.
platform. It's a social network, social media. Those words are kind of like being confusing, I think. So, but
Hmm.
it's really like a media platform. I have an audience, I build content, I also consume content, I comment, I exchange. It's a wonderful place, frankly, to like learn and share and grow and market. But it's not where your network is fully captured. It's just
Hmm.
kind of like one strange um, accumulation of connections over the years in very disparate and random ways. Some at conferences, some on calls, some by doing like outbound and so on. So yeah, um, I think that's just kind of like the reframe. It's your audience, not your network, is how I've been like putting it.
Yeah, and I like the other thing too is traditionally sales teams, it's all about, isn't it, activity. I mean, that's what it used to be. Oh, measure activity, activity, activity,
Mhm.
and then when you reorient them towards relationship quality and and building, how do you get that kind of switched between moving from activity, like numbers, 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 to quality, quality of your network, quality of your introductions, quality of the people you're connected to?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like it's a combination of both, I think. Like, right, and for junior salespeople who don't necessarily have the network, like
Mhm.
this is sort of an opportunity to see the network of department leaders, C-level folks, maybe investors. But that's when we start to talk about the process of how am I gonna tap into that. I am sitting there as an account executive, 25 years old. I have Stripe as my account here, and with the Swarm, I can see that there is potential intro path. But like, so the company that needs to build a process around it, like a air traffic control of intro
Mhm.
requests, right? And rules of engagement, like can an AE ask an investor for an intro? I don't know. It depends on the company, the size, the
Mhm.
nature, and
Yeah.
so on. But like that goes into process. And so, but I think that's a wonderful opportunity because the people who have the biggest networks, investors, CEO,
Mhm.
right? Like they're also the people who have the least amount of time. And so if you get the information in the hands of the right people with the right process to ask for the help for the right account to unlock the $10 million deal, and that's great. And so yeah, it's that picture isn't complete yet. We're a work in progress. We're building it in collaboration
Mhm.
with our customers. um and I think it just takes kind of alignment between the founders, like the
Yeah.
sales leaders, and then how is the sales team going to use this effectively. And there's change management culture involved into this, so
Yeah, because
it's
it's a great point that you make there, because because you could have, you could easily, like, it could easily get out of control, right? I mean, you could easily go, oh well, I'll just go, I'll go to the investor every time because he's got the biggest network, right? So I'll always send it to them, right? Instead of, as you
right,
said, instead of being, well, no, that's probably not the best place to go. But
right.
putting kind of rules and understanding and training, and as you said, change management around it, so you use it
Mhm.
properly.
And we are working on like the connector portal. So the connector in the
Mhm.
Swarm lingo is like someone you ask the intro to. So you have your connectors right around your in and around your company, and
Mhm.
we're working on that like system. And we we've realized that we need to optimize this for the connector experience to be the best possible, because it's only going to work if the connector has some control. Well, first of all, like, are they doing this because they're interested in the success of the company, or is there a revenue share, or do they want like tickets to the Super Bowl if the $10 million deal goes,
Right.
that stuff and controls. And like, I want to opt out because I don't have time, or I'm going to opt in, but I really only want to get an email every month at the most with a list of people and so on.
Right.
So there is more to build there. We're working on that actively, and that's the fun part to me. Like, it's like at this very moment in time, it's like, how do we make the connector experience really good? Because if it's really good, then they can connect, they can make the intro, and this whole thing then like really starts spinning faster and faster.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the important point. Yeah, I mean, if you feel value and you feel like you have some control, and it's not just going to overwhelm you, then it
That's
becomes
just like, yeah.
yeah. Well, this has been
Um,
fantastic, Olivier. Great, really fascinating stuff. All of Olivier's information will be below this video. But before we go, just remind people again about the Swarm.
Yeah, so the Swarm is the relationship intelligence leader. We map relationships around your company through your investors, advisors, customers, team members, so you can see who knows who. And as for warm intros, we're built on this data set that's also available from the API itself. We connect into the CRM, Cloud, ChatGPT, and so on. There's a lot of fun use case. So there's a free trial that's at theswarm.com. So we'd love for you guys to check it out.
Yeah. And it's great. And just think about it. Just think back to the old days. What did you do? I mean, you went, oh, Olivier, didn't he used to work for that company, didn't he? That, and maybe he knows that part. And then you go on from manual and then you discover, no, I actually didn't work for that company. Somebody else did. And so this is now kind of operationalizing something that once upon a time was so manual as to not really be efficient.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Well, listen, thanks again, Olivier. Thank you for watching and listening. See you all again very soon. Thank you.